Welcome back to Brand Institute of Forensics and Security. We are continuing with our course, and today we are going to talk about fire safety audits. This is one of the lengthy topics that we are going to cover, and I have divided the lesson into sections. Remember, this is still under fire safety protection. My name is Mr. Wayne. I am very happy to be presenting to you this topic, and I hope that you are all in good shape, and I hope that you all remember that fire, the threat of fire, is one of the major threats that we face in organizations. So even as we focus on the other security issues that keep arising, that keep changing on a daily basis, we have to remember that fire predominantly remains one of the major threats from the early ages. From the early ages, fire remains one of the major threats that we face. So we should never, at our facilities, at our organizations, at our homes, at our work businesses, during social events, forget that a fire threat exists. We have already spoken about the basics of fire, and today we are going to focus about safety audits. And as I have said, I have divided this into three. We are first going to talk about fire safety audits, understand what is a fire safety audit, and then we shall talk about regulations and codes, because when you conduct a fire safety audit, you base your conclusions or your inspection on regulations and codes existing. Remember, these regulations and codes are different in different countries, in different jurisdictions. So we shall talk about fire safety audits, we talk about regulation and codes, and then I have introduced something in this presentation that I hope will be of benefit to you. We are going to look at the common violations that people make at facilities or at organizations, in that when inspectors visit your location for an inspection from the government, auditors, external auditors, then you are found at fault for having breached several violations, and your organization faces fines and even closure. So I have introduced something into this, some topics, some lessons in this presentation that covers common violations. I hope that will be very interesting to you. We are going to start by looking at what is a fire safety audit. What is a fire safety audit? A fire safety audit is an evaluation of an organization, location, or facility conducted to determine the level of fire safety. An evaluation of an organization, location, or facility conducted to determine the level of fire safety. We say even a home, your own home, you may conduct a fire safety audit of your plot where you stay or of your home and determine the level of fire safety. Fire safety audits evaluate potential hazards for fire and the effectiveness of emergency preparedness and safety systems. Audits may include both site-specific and industry-specific audits. So fire safety audits evaluate potential hazards for fire and the effectiveness of emergency preparedness and safety systems. Audits may include both site-specific and specific audits and industry-specific audits. Let's look at site-specific audits. Site-specific audits include any location or establishment where people might be affected by fire or where public health and or safety is at risk. So site-specific audit includes any location or establishment where people may be affected by fire or where public health and or safety is at risk. Then we look at industry-specific audits include any organization or occupation where there is a high risk of fire or that may have a large impact on others if the hazard was to occur. So we say site specific. Let's say, for example, a church is a location where people might be affected by fire, a stadium, for example, where people may be affected by a fire. And then industry specific include any organization or occupation where there is a high risk of fire. For example, Kengen, for example, oil production companies, for example, industries, for example, hotels include any organization or occupation where there is a high risk of fire or that may have a large impact on others if the hazard was to occur. For example, if a fire was to occur at the main electricity generation plant in Kenya, then definitely that one would have a high impact on others if that one happened. The focus of the audit is to ensure that all areas that may be impacted by the hazard are fully prepared. All organizations and industries are at risk of fire. Therefore, industries that include processes that may create a large volume of fire include oil, mining, construction, chemical, and others. These are some of the industries that may create a large volume of fire. Those people who work in the oil industry, those people who work in the mining industry, those people who work in the construction industry, those people who work in chemical and other industries are at high risk of fire occurrence. You may also think of other high risk locations or high risk facilities or high risk industries where if a fire would occur, then the impact would be very high. Fire safety audits may include reviewing fire prevention, protection, suppression, and suppression systems. We are also going in this module, we are also going to learn more as we continue on fire prevention, protection, suppression, and suppression systems. Reviewing evacuation plans. Reviewing fire safety communication systems. Reviewing emergency response procedures. Reviewing the adequacy of building or fire code compliance. Reviewing fire safety training of employees. These are some of the areas where a fire safety audit may focus. Then we again say industry-specific audits focus on specific industries or organizations where the hazards are created in or by the business. So this will be our main focus because we want to talk about facilities where you work, organizations where you work, and these are related to industry-specific audits. There are many tools that can be used in fire safety audits, and these tools include the extinguishers, the fire hydrants, and the sprinklers. At your level as a security officer, as a security professional, you should be able to know extinguishers, hydrants, and even sprinkler systems, because fire safety is one of the major area in security management. Fire safety is one of the major area in security management. Let me tell you the most important areas in security management, because security involves three aspects: protecting people, protecting assets and property, and also safeguarding information. Three in security involves that. So the major areas in security management include fire safety, include CCTV surveillance, include occupational health and safety, include information security, include other aspects now related to the security operation, like first aid is also a major component of the overall security management. Risk assessment is also another area of overall security management. Response to crisis and emergency management. When we talk about crisis and emergency management, it is also part of the overall security management. And then we come to normal operations, normal management issues, normal management plans, forecasting, and other things. So security, you can see, it's a very wide field. Many people in many industries that where I have worked and from the experience that I have think that security is a very minimal area of operation. They believe that security is walking around the facility or around the organization. However, if you look at the concept in general, you find that security is very wide. And when you grow in your career, when you become a supervisor, when you become a security officer, when you become a security manager, then you'll see how taxing it is or how deep security is. So those are just some of the areas that we have to think about when we also talk about fire safety management. Audits can be performed to ensure that an organization is prepared for an emergency and ensure that all employees and contractors that will be affected by the emergency are trained and that they are needed and that any needed equipment is readily available. I wanted to focus on training, emergency training people, preparing people for evacuations, preparing people to identify fire hazards, preparing people to take proactive action in the event that there is a fire occurrence. These things are very, very important. Training is very important. A fire safety audit for an organization does not determine that a fire hazard will not occur. Rather, the purpose of a fire safety audit is to ensure that any potential fire hazards have been identified, planned for, and properly protected. You remember we already spoke about fire hazards. So the purpose of a fire safety audit is to ensure that any potential fire hazard have been identified, planned for, and properly protected. Purposes of fire safety audit. Again, a fire safety audit can be used by any business or organization to ensure that all areas of a business are well protected from a fire. In a fire safety audit, the auditor may or may not check for fire safety violations or may identify fire hazards that are not in violation. There are three main purposes for the fire safety audit in brief: inspecting for fire safety violations, checking to ensure that all safety procedures and equipment are available and in good working order, identifying additional hazards that may cause fire or that may increase a fire impact. Can you please note that down as I drink a glass of water? There are three main purposes for fire safety audits. Right. Then there are several reasons to conduct a fire safety audit. What is the reason to conduct a fire safety audit? You may be subjected to an interview. You have applied to join a particular organization as a security manager, and then during the board interview, they ask you, what are the reasons for conducting a fire safety audit? Then you should be able to explain yourself clearly with confidence that it can be carried out after a fire or emergency involving the workplace, to detect fire safety issues at an early stage, to evaluate the effectiveness of safety systems in the workplace, to identify the fire safety hazards that may exist in the workplace and to take preventive actions. If there is any problem in the workplace, the auditor will alert safety and compliance officers so that corrective action can be taken. And then conducting a fire safety audit is a proactive measure that can help reduce the risk of fire in the workplace. I think it is self-explanatory. However, you can pick some points. For example, to detect the fire safety issues at an early stage, to evaluate the effectiveness of safety systems in the workplace, to identify the fire safety hazards that may exist in the workplace, and to check if there is any problem in the workplace. The auditor will alert safety and compliance officers so that corrective action can be taken. And then conducting a fire safety audit is a proactive measure that can help reduce the risk of a fire in the workplace. Those are some of the reasons why we conduct a fire safety audit. Remember, we may conduct a fire safety audit internally and we may invite external auditors to come and conduct fire safety for us. And we may also be subjected to regulations, government requirements. Inspectors from the City Inspectorate of Fire or Fire Brigade, they are sent to your facility to come and conduct a fire audit. I can tell you, don't wait until the inspectors are arriving at your premises to conduct a fire safety audit. Conduct internal fire safety audits in advance. Invite external auditors to carry out these fire safety audits so that when the government sends its inspectors, they find your location or your facility is in good shape. It is in good shape, because if the auditors come and they inspect your organization or your facility and they determine that there are quite a high number of violations, then it impacts on you as a security professional or as a security manager in charge of that premises. It clearly impacts on you. For example, if they find that there are over 10 or 20 extinguishers in the same location that are out of charge and you are there on duty and you do not pick these things, then it impacts on you negatively as a security manager. So watch that, because there are some issues that will come from external parties or from external agencies, especially related to the government, that will highlight you in the negative. So it is important to be proactive. Being proactive is not waiting until something happens so that you react. You be proactive in advance. You arrange a weekly or a monthly or a 3-month or 6-month internal fire inspection or internal fire systems audit. The role of the auditor is to identify the current fire safety controls at the workplace. Identify any issues that might lead to a fire. Record any deficiencies and take action to improve this fire safety at the workplace. The auditors will take any necessary action to improve the current fire safety situation and take precautions to protect the workers. You can hear those are very strong terms. The auditors will take any necessary action to improve the current fire safety situation and take precautions to prevent the workers. Auditors may even recommend to the government to shut down your premises because the threat of fire is very high and people are at risk. They will recommend that this premises is not suitable for operation. These premises should be shut down. So fire audit services, there exist companies that deal with these inspections or that provide audits to several establishments. It is for you to find out now from your level which organizations exist in Kenya or wherever you are that conduct fire safety audits. You may also grow into your career and become a fire safety auditor. There are licensing training by the governments. There are international licenses that you can study and acquire these licenses and become a fire safety auditor and even establish your own company to carry out fire safety audits. It's a very interesting field. It is a field that I hope some of you can venture into it. Methodology for conducting a fire safety audit. Methodology of conducting the fire safety audits involves the following. Methodology is the steps or the way, the procedure. A walk through the concerned premises. Walk through the concerned premises. Overview of the layout and drawing. So you must have layout and drawings and plans. You must know what is in place, what is in existence here. First of all, you have to know what operations takes place here. Is it high risk or what kind of operations takes place here? And then overview of the existing firefighting systems in the premises. Then overview of the training and awareness regarding availability and operations of the firefighting systems in and across the organization. Recommendations for corrective and preventive actions. Recommendations for corrective and preventive actions. Then update of fire safety risk management database. And then prepare additional reports or relevant paperwork and send as soon as possible. If necessary, arrange and undertake any follow-up actions, etc. So this is the methodology. Can you please also write it down, the methodology that you need to conduct a fire safety audit? I hope you have recorded something down, because the methodology is very important for you to know how to conduct a fire safety audit. So you may do it internally, as I have mentioned above. Now, let's turn our attention to the second part of this presentation, which is fire safety regulations. Fire safety regulations. Let's turn our attention to this, because when you conduct fire safety audits, you base your inspection on existing fire safety regulations and codes. They are sometimes called fire safety regulations, and they are also called codes. This depends with the country where you are and the jurisdiction. Now, they refers to set of rules that specify the minimum acceptable level of fire safety, and which are set by and enforced by authorities having jurisdiction, e.g., national governments or local authorities. For example, in our country, I think now there is the overall fire safety management issues under the national disaster, and there is also now fire management codes in a particular county, different county. Every different county has got its own different rules and regulations and codes that cover fire safety management. Fire regulations are found in both building and fire codes. Fire regulations are found in both building and fire codes. Building codes constitute a set of design and construction requirements rooted in the code that must be adhered to during construction of a building. Structural passive fire safety measures. So just remember that building codes are codes, requirements rooted in the code that must be adhered to during construction. So building codes, just remember, during construction. Then fire codes comprise of mainly active non-structural fire safety measures that are put in place after construction of a structure and are to be maintained to ensure safety from fire. So, for example, we say that building codes are adhered to during construction of a building, structural passive fire safety measures. And then we say fire codes comprise of mainly active non-structural. Active non-structural. So we can say, for example, the fire suppression system is actually a building, can be structured under a building code, because it is actually put into place during construction. So although sometimes some facilities include fire suppression systems after the building has been built, but it is very costly. It is important to consider these things during construction. Like fire hydrant system, this one has to be put into place during construction. But when you talk about extinguishers, placement of extinguishers, then this one is done actually when the building is already in existence. I hope you can differentiate the two. So it is the responsibility of owners and operators of structures to build and maintain these facilities in accordance with the building and fire codes. Building inspectors check for compliance with the building codes before a building permit is issued. You already know that. Building inspectors check for compliance with the building code before a building permit is issued. Lessons learned from fire emergencies are applied to the authorizing of both building codes and fire codes. I hope you can read the words that I have highlighted in yellow, because unfortunately it is not very clear to me because of my lighting system again, but I hope you can capture those words and you can read them. That are fire prevention officers, inspectors of local fire department check for compliance to the fire code on a periodical basis as a means of enforcement in order to ensure adherence. Then we say regulations can be mandatory and regulations can be obligatory. Regulations can be mandatory, regulations can be obligatory. Mandatory, it is a must. Obligatory, it is not very a must, but you have to do them. So mandatory is a must. These have to do with the construction and design measures that must be adhered to during construction. And the owner of the building is liable to prosecution if or she disregards these requirements. This includes measures regarding fire exits, outside staircases for tall buildings, installation of fire equipment, and the use of fireproof materials in the construction process, among others. Those are mandatory. Then obligatory covers protection of individuals utilizing the premises. This puts an obligation on the authorities to protect the people through, among others, awareness creation on fire safety and firefighting and insurance protection against fire. We also have other regulations which are called recommendatory regulations. These are user specific in that they demand a self-evaluation in terms of recommendations relating to a particular business. For example, people engaging in more risky businesses, as in hotels and restaurants, are required to strictly follow these recommendations. They should, for instance, have extinguishers for different types of fire alongside installing other measures necessary for fire safety. Recommendatory regulations. We have mandatory regulations, we have obligatory regulations, and we have recommendatory regulations. These are user specific. Other safety issues in a fire code include certification of servicing, placement and inspecting equipment, general storage and handling of flammable materials. This one is very sensitive. Limitations on locations and quantities and specific of flammables. Permits and installations in various building occupants in buildings, i.e. maximum occupancy, removal of interior and exterior obstructions to emergency exits or firefighters, and removal of materials. And then we have permits and limitations in special outdoor applications, e.g. tents, kettles, bonfires, etc. Other hazards: flammable decorations, welding, smoking, bulky matches, tire yards, etc., among many other measures. These are other safety issues in a fire code. So I said it depends with the jurisdiction, it depends with the country, it depends with the county. What does the code require for us to do? How do we manage these issues? For example, if you look at the specifics, let's take an example of Kenya. At the coastal area, and the codes will be different because of different weather conditions. If you look at the coastal area, and maybe you look at the eastern area, and maybe you look at the western area, you will find that the codes will be different because the environments are different. Facilities exist in environments that are different. For example, the coastal area, it is too salty, so equipments will rust very fast due to the salty nature of the environment. Therefore, you will find that codes require inspections to be conducted after every 3 months. Whereas in the other areas, you'll find that codes require inspections to be conducted after every 6 months. So codes are different depending on jurisdiction. Internationally, there is the International Fire Code developed by the International Code Council, which contains provisions to regulate fire hazards in existing buildings, as well as provisions for the installation, testing, and maintenance of fire protection fixtures in both new and existing buildings internationally. Then locally, the fire regulation is disjointed and scattered in various pieces of legislation, such as the Local Government Act, Occupational Safety and Health Act, Grass Fire Act, Petroleum Act, Chiefs Act, Building Code, and Local Government Act, among other various acts. For more acts and details, refer to the Kenya Fire Safety Policy. And then we also see fire safety standards. These are also, apart from regulations and codes, we also have fire safety standards. Fire safety standards refers to the attainment of a desirable quality, excellent levels or degree of quality or excellence in terms of fire safety measures. Therefore, we say standards refer to attainment of desirable quality, excellent levels or degree of quality or excellence in terms of the fire safety measures. And then standards are ideal levels that players in the fire safety management aspire to attain. Standards are ideal levels that players in the fire safety management aspire to attain. Fire safety standards help in ensuring uniformity, compatibility, interoperability, safety, repeatability, and quality. Examples of fire standards are internationally ISO, International Organization for Standardization, standards on fire safety management. That is one standard, for example. Locally, the Kenya Bureau of Standards, KBS, standards on fire safety. So these are some of the also the areas that you should understand as a security professional. When I mentioned in another presentation that you should be able to understand these things, because sometimes you find yourself in forums where people are discussing issues related to fire safety and they are talking about standards, and you should also be able to understand. It is also of great importance for you to know these things so that when you base your auditing or when you base your inspections, internal inspections, you know you are following which standards. Also, we talk also about something we call fire safety policy. These are guidelines which provide for establishment and maintenance of fire safety measures. Put differently, it enables a course of actions that should be taken to ensure fire safety. Policies may or may not be enforced. Policies can also inform legislation, guide or passed into a code, and may also be derived from codes and contextualized, customized to meet the demands of an individual organization. So these are fire safety policies. They are guidelines which provide for establishment and maintenance of fire safety measures. Key elements of fire safety policy: building a facility in accordance with the version of the local building code, maintaining a facility and conducting your activities in accordance with the provisions of the fire code. This is based on the occupants and operators of the building being aware of the applicable regulations and advice. Examples of this include not exceeding the maximum occupancy within any part of the building, maintaining proper fire exits and proper exit signage, compliance with electrical codes to prevent overheating and ignition from electrical faults or problems such as poor wire insulation or overloading wiring, conductors or other fixtures with more electrical current than they are rated for, placing and maintaining the correct type of extinguishers in easily accessible places, properly storing and using hazardous materials that may be needed inside the building for storage or operational requirements, prohibiting flammable materials in certain areas of the facility. These are some of the policy requirements that we have to keep in mind. And then also periodically inspecting buildings for violations, issuing orders to comply, prosecuting or closing buildings that are not in compliance with until the deficiencies are corrected, or condemning it in extreme cases, maintaining fire alarm systems for detection and warning of fire, ensuring that spray fireproofing remains undamaged, maintaining a high level of training and awareness of occupants and the users of the building to avoid the obvious mistakes such as propping open of doors, and then conduct fire drills at regular intervals throughout the year. Fire drills must be conducted at regular intervals throughout the year. We forget this a lot. And we never conduct fire drills as security professionals. We don't arrange for them. We fear, we are afraid of what will happen. But that is not the way to go. The way to go is to conduct fire drills at regular intervals throughout the year. And then we say locally, the fire safety policy is awaiting adaptation by the government. I don't know whether it was adopted by the time I was preparing this presentation, because it is quite some time back. Please, can you check for me whether the Kenyan fire safety policy was adopted? And then its overarching objective is to harmonize the safety regulations in the country in order to ensure a coordinated approach in prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery from fire hazards in order to guarantee fire safety. Other national policies that recognize fire as a major risk and provide for measures to manage fire safety are the proposed National Policy on Disaster Management and the National Housing Policy. The Factories and other places of Work Act, you may also need to refer to this. It covers also a lot of fire issues. And then the Factories and Other Places of Work Fire Reduction Rules 2007, you may also need to refer to this. Also, the Occupational Safety and Health Act of number 15 of 2007, it contains also codes and regulations and policies related to fire safety in Kenya. And then the act, there is an act that's called Fire Inquiry, which police use. It is an act of parliament to provide for the holding of inquiries in cases of fire. That in cases of fire, there is an act that the police base their inquiries. And then there is also the Kenya National Fire Brigade Association, is the national peak body in Kenya supporting and representing fire protection and safety. And then the association was established in the year 2007 by firefighters countrywide and is registered as Sheria House under Section 10 of the laws of the Republic of Kenya. Let me say something here. As a security professional, strive, at least in the security field, to be again a professional in just a particular, specifically a particular field. For example, you can work very hard. You are still in the security management, but you work very hard and become very effective in fire prevention. You can still be in the security field and work very hard and deviate your licensing and your most of your training to occupational health and safety. You can still be a security manager, but you can strive very hard and become licensed in CCTV surveillance. At least try to acquire a licensing in one of the areas. For example, me, I like to say it because it is my effort. I have been licensed as a certified security management professional by ISMI UK. Strive to become at least you are a security manager. Yes, a security field, a security professional. You cannot manage all these things, my dear friend. But strive to be at least a professional in one area where you are licensed. Like now, the fire safety issues are very important. If you get licensing in fire safety, I can tell you, you'll be moving in the right direction. Thank you. Let's look at the most common fire code violations. This report was for 2019. I used 2019 because it is just a few years back to 2023, almost 4 years. So I used 2019 because there has been several changes. Things keep changing all the time. But this is the one that I saw it was most suitable for us because it touches on businesses. So we are going to be very fast here in the interest of time. As a security professional, it's essential to know what the fire auditors and county local authority having jurisdiction are looking for when it comes to adhering to some of the most prominent and straightforward building fire safety regulations. Knowing the frequent fire code violations found in businesses will help you pass the fire safety inspections. The most common fire code violations include, remember now we are on the third part of this presentation, where we are now talking about the most common fire code violations. So the most common fire code violations, one is extension codes. Two is blocked exits or fire doors. 3 is exit signs and faulty lighting, improper storage, blocked valves or exterior access points, incorrect sprinklers, fire extinguisher issues, broken smoke detectors, fire alarms or pull station not working, hanging items from sprinkler heads or pipes, improper records. These are the most common. These are the most common, and I wish you can list them down, but you can list them down one by one as we continue. By learning about the frequent fire safety fails and the most common fire code violations, you can address your fire protection issues before they become costly fire code violation fines. Most fire safety rules and regulations in the workplace are easy to comply with as part of your daily routine. It's very easy to comply with this as part of your daily patrol routines. When you are patrolling, you can easily check whether there are fire extinguishers, whether there are fire extinguisher issues. You can check whether smoke detectors have been broken. You can check whether items are hanging from sprinkler heads. So this is very easy to carry out in your daily duties. However, due to the kind of operations, we usually are caught up in so many issues that we fail to follow up on these things. So, fire safety door regulations and the blocked exit. This is number one violation. Fire doors and exit area, fire safety codes and regulations are some of the most straightforward rules to forget. It is vital to keep all doors and exits unblocked 100% of the time. Leaving deliveries in hallways or storing merchandise in front of doorways, even for a few or short hours, could be life-threatening if fire breaks out and evacuation is required. All emergency exit doors, hallways, pathways, and stairways must be kept clear of debris. All emergency exit doors, hallways, pathways, and stairways must be kept clear of debris. This is your job as a security professional. There should be a checklist at your workplace that you use during patrol, and these are some of the things that should be included in the checklist. Additional fire safety regulations. Buildings occupants must be able to open all exits quickly and easily. There should not be a special tool, key, or any unusual ways of opening an exit door to leave the building safely. Just as exits must be easy to open, they must also be self-closing to avoid being accidentally left open. National Fire Protection Association (NFPA) 80 codes require fire doors remain closed at all times, except when being temporarily held open by an unapproved device. You see, they require doors remain closed, not locked. Being closed and locked are two different issues. So fire doors should not be locked, but they should remain closed. 2. Improper use of extension cords. This is one of the most severe code violations one can commit, and it is still one of the most common. Extension cords are designed for temporary use only and become a fire hazard, and fire safety fail if used permanently. Never attach extension cords to each other, to permanent fixtures, or pass them through holes in the wall. Get rid of extension cords and add more outlets. Take note of that. Extension cords are the major sources of fire in most of the facilities, in most of the organizations, in most of the homes. We overload them, and you saw from the photos from the previous presentation. So find a way of getting rid of extension cords and add more outlets. Liars with engineering, they will do this job. It is best if you have more outlets than using extension cords. They are for temporary use. I've said enough about that. Number 3 is fire safety signage regulations. This is failure to non-illuminated, flickering, blocked exit signs, and faulty lighting. Non-illuminated or blocked exit signs are common code violations found in businesses, which are easily fixed to prevent unwanted fine. This is an important part of the fire safety code and regulations. All commercial buildings are required to have illuminated and blocked exit signs, and most are required to have emergency lights that remain lit for 90 minutes during power outages. So all commercial buildings are required to have illuminated and blocked exit signs, and most are required to have emergency lights that remain lit for 90 minutes during power outages. Therefore, these must be tested and certified annually in order to pass fire safety inspections. Exit signs require backup batteries so occupants can safely evacuate in the dark, while emergency backup lighting inspires calmness for smoother evacuations. Code requires exit signs and lightings to be checked monthly. It is also wise to change exit sign batteries as you do in your smoke detectors on the same day every year. Take note of that. Improper storage in fire pump and razor rooms. Improper storage is a big issue in most organizations. You can see from the photo. Improper storage. Every business could use another storage closet, right? Especially for mops, brooms, and miscellaneous items. You find that fire inspectors often see these items stored in the pump and the razor rooms, making this a common and costly fire code violation. Even at some locations, you'll find there where the locations for fire extinguishers, they are called fire points. You'll find they have cabinets. These cabinets where fire extinguishers are placed, you'll find that housekeeping people, engineering people use these areas to store items, rags, brooms, tools. So you should always be on the lookout and remove these things, and also have a strong policy at the workplace that do not store any items at fire locations, including fire pump room and razor rooms. Fire pump and razor rooms are not the place to house anything other than fire protection equipment. In the event of a fire, emergency personnel needs to get into the space to work, and extra items prohibit or slow their ability to access the equipment. So be very strict on this one at your workplace. Don't allow people to make fire locations storage areas. We also see that another thing that we have is blocked exterior fire department connections and valves. Landscaping such as trees and bollards or business equipment, pallets and dumpsters are often in the way of the exterior fire department connection, FDC, and other access points, which is a common fire code violation. So always patrol and ensure that these landscaping things are such as trees and pallets and dumpsters, or these things are not kept in the exterior fire department connection areas. It is crucial that exterior fire department connections, FDC, remain accessible for the fire department to instantly connect and operate the valves to extinguish a fire. Maintain an open path from where the fire department will stage operations to the fire hydrants. The valves, etc. Maintain an open path. And then also we say an incorrect fire sprinkler system. If the organization is in a building originally built for other purposes, do you know if your fire sprinklers are up to local codes for your company's current business purposes? This is for you to check. For example, if a big box store is located in a building that used to be a storage warehouse, there will be vastly different sprinkler requirements for the space, commodities, and occupancy. If the fire sprinklers are not updated to match the design and hazard classification, this is a code violation, and this mistake is surprisingly common. If in the process of changing buildings or buying a pre-purposed building, consult with a fire protection company to conduct an inspection of the sprinkler system and provide recommendations. So sprinkler systems, you find that we have just moved into a new building. We are putting up a restaurant, and the building was not a restaurant before, it was a store, and we need to confirm that the sprinkler system in place is suitable for that place. And this can only be done by consulting a fire protection officer or a fire protection company to conduct an inspection of the sprinkler system and provide recommendations. And then a most common issue for you to check on a constant basis is missing fire extinguishers. Missing, damaged, or partially used fire extinguishers are especially common at many organizations. Not having a proper fire extinguishers are relevant as per relevant regulations is a common violation. To avoid violations and fines, ensure there are fully charged working fire extinguishers that are classified for each area of your building. We are going to see classification of fire extinguishers and how we use them on which classes of fire. All fire extinguishers should also be inspected and serviced annually by a certified and professional fire protection company. After every use, they should be refilled and inspected. Ignoring preventive inspections and maintenance result yet in more violations. So fire extinguishers, and as you can see, missing. If there's a missing fire extinguisher at a particular fire point, you know there are those regulations that say after every certain length of the building, there should be fire extinguishers. There should be fire extinguishers. There should be a fire point. A fire point is where we have fire extinguishers. And then I also hope you know how to check the gauge. Most of the fire extinguishers in this age have a gauge, as you can see on the photo on display. And this gauge will tell you whether the extinguisher is in good service order as it relates to pressure or under pressure. So you should, my fellow directors will be able to guide you accordingly on this, and if it is possible, they will pick one extinguisher and they will show you this code. Ask for it. Just ask them. We want to see the gauge that Wayne spoke about in fire extinguishers, and we want to know whether the extinguisher is in good order or not, serviced or not. So that one is very important. Missing fire equipments, you have to report it. Okay, and then also we have faulty smoke detectors. Faulty smoke detectors. Large facilities have the hardest time keeping up with missing or faulty smoke detectors. When a smoke detector battery runs out, it starts chipping, and the technicians are too busy to deal with it at that very moment. To avoid this annoyance, technicians may be tempted to remove the battery or unhook the wiring of the smoke detector and take it down, only to forget it's missing. An unworking or missing detector is a serious fire code violation and poses a threat to people's safety. When a smoke detector chips, address it immediately. It may need replacing or a new battery. To ensure that they all work for the same amount of time, replace batteries on the same day every year. Detectors should be replaced every 10 years, whether they are working or not. Then unmaintained fire alarms and fire protection systems maintenance. Fire alarms. I worked with one general manager at Republic of Maldives called Mr. Igor Dolazel. He was very good because he was insisting on proactive maintenance, not waiting until things break down, then we go into maintenance or servicing mode. He was always speaking of proactive maintenance, conducting servicing and maintenance of equipment before they break down. Fire alarm pull stations and other fire protection systems are often not tested or inspected as required, which is a common code violation. It is quite easy to forget to test this, especially when blocked by merchandise and other goods or equipment. It is quite easy to forget this one. Fire alarm and pull stations should not be blocked and must remain visible to occupants, and for your fire protection company to test and inspect them as per codes. All fire alarms and their components must be tested annually by a licensed technician who should also inspect all aspects of the fire protection system, including but not limited to the fire sprinkler system, standpipes, and the fire pumps. A written log of these inspections is also required. And then also hanging items from sprinklers and the pipings. Please ensure no items are hung on sprinklers and pipings. Do not hang or support anything on exposed sprinkler pipes or heads. It is strictly prohibited. Lightweight items may seem insignificant but may cause surprising issues due to chemical incompatibility with the plastic piping, electrical shorts, or creating vibration in the system. And then also not keeping proper records. The fire protection company that maintains the fire protection systems should provide written records of services, maintenance, and inspections. If there are several different contractors to inspect, maintain, repair, and replace fire safety systems, it can be a challenge to keep up who has done what, when, and find the required paperwork when needed. That is why not keeping proper records is a big violation. Keeping records. That is why we are talking of nowadays. We like saying that we are going to keep records in the systems, automated systems, which is okay. We automate everything. We put things in the systems everywhere. However, from my own experience, I still insist even the manual records are still very important. Checklists, the occurrence books, where security officers, security guards write these things, it is still very important record, because systems collapse, systems develop issues, you lose information, you lose records, and if you don't have a manual backup, if you do not have a manual backup, then I can tell you, and there is a situation, then you'll be in a very, very difficult position. These common yet easily avoidable 5 fire code violations can become issues that result in fines, expensive repairs, and even closures. By hiring a single source fire protection partner, fire codes and regulations can be easily followed and fire safety fails can be avoided. What I want to say in conclusion is that we have looked at what we mean by a fire safety audit. We have looked at regulation and codes, and we have looked at most common violations. It is your job as a security professional to ensure you understand how to conduct a fire safety audit and how to conduct it internally by yourself even before the inspectors arrive. Number two, it is important for you to know, depending on your country and jurisdiction and county, which regulations, which codes exist related to fire safety, which are these codes and which are these requirements. And then finally, it is for you to conduct periodic inspections, periodic patrols, using checklists to make sure that some of the violations that we have mentioned here are rectified on time. Make sure that these violations are rectified on time and records are maintained. We are completing this presentation by insisting and by mentioning again and again, maintaining records in proper order. If you are a security manager and you have security officers who do not write properly, who do not keep records as per your requirements, these are people you should get rid of. People who patrol and they don't maintain good records, their occurrence books are missing, you cannot find them, please don't work with this kind of people, because when the problem will occur, it will be you who will be held responsible for the problems. Especially if it is a fire occurrence, you will be held responsible as the security manager. So be very proactive. Ensure that your people conduct patrols. Ensure that your people use checklists. Ensure that records are maintained. With those few remarks, I want to say that thank you so much. We are going to meet for the second, I think it is the 5th lesson of this course, and I hope that we are moving in the right direction. There are takeaway assignments. Work on those assignments and give us feedback. Thank you very much, and have a lovely day.